How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Foo Show. I'm your host, Coach Ali Fusho. In this episode, episode number 29, we will be talking about my personal recommendations when it comes to senior citizen workout. So, I am 100% sure that none of my viewers are senior citizens. And if I'm wrong, then that's great. Hi, you're probably like what, 0.1% of my viewership that would be over 60 or over 65 years old. Whatever it is, majority of you, I'm pretty sure, are not senior citizens. So this advice that I will be sharing with you guys at this episode, maybe you click to this episode in the hopes of you sharing all the information to your parents, to your grandparents. My mom is a senior citizen. I have failed as a coach and as a son because in my 8 years of being a personal trainer, not once has she ever asked to be worked out. Or actually, I asked for her to work out a bit, but of course, I don't think my mom will listen to her son. I guess that's just the thing. I'm pretty sure that happens in a lot of families as well, wherein even though somebody's in a place of authority, the mom or the parent will not just listen just because they're the child. But anyway, so yeah, majority of you who are listening to this episode right now, hopefully that the advice that I will be sharing in this episode will be helpful enough for you to help your senior citizen family members, your mom or your grandparents, to work out. And this advice, it's nothing complicated. I'll just be laying out some 5 tips on how I think senior citizens should work out, especially if they haven't worked out in the longest time or if it's their first time in their entire life, in the decades of existence in their life for them to start working out. Hopefully this advice will be helpful. And I guess to summarize it first, I do want to say like there's only 5 tips. I'll mention all of them now, then I'll go into detail later. First, you have to prioritize walking. That's always number one. Number two is that when it comes to workouts, you actually have to prioritize frequency above intensity. Number three, it's also really important for you to train, or for them to train the reaction time, because of course, basically, we don't want them to slip and fall. If ever they are in a situation that they might slip, we want them to develop we want them to be coordinated enough to have the reaction time to catch themselves from falling. Number four is for them to build strength at the end ranges of motion. In other words, to increase their strength and mobility. And the fifth and final one is that I do not recommend a lot of machines for senior citizens. So basically, the inverse of that is that I do recommend senior citizens to work on free weights and primarily actually calisthenics or like body weight work. So those are the 5 tips. I will go into detail, but I do want to also say that I'm sorry for not that I haven't uploaded in the past few weeks because once again I was in Japan. This was just to share you guys some life stuff before the main meat of the episode. I went to Japan. I went to Tokyo to visit my wife because we just celebrated our first anniversary. And I know, I mean, I know this is a fitness podcast, but I do want to share like how it was. Not. I won't spend 20 minutes, hopefully, talking about it. But this was our first anniversary. And I know before, when I went to Japan last October, because I stayed there for a month, I was able to I stayed there for like 3 or so weeks. I was able to produce some episodes for you guys there. But in my week or a bit over a week of being there, I decided not to upload an episode there. Since it was our anniversary, I wanted every time that we had together to be dedicated to us being together, and I didn't want to set aside time for the episode. But nonetheless, it was really a fun week to be there. Another just sharing session with you guys right now. The first year of us being LDR, because obviously she's in Tokyo, I'm in Manila, it was really manageable. Of course, it wasn't ideal. Like, I didn't feel like, oh, why do people keep on saying that LDR is hard? It's perfectly fine. I mean, we at this day and age, we have video call, talk to each other every day, send memes, play video games online. It was fine. But I don't know, guys. I mean, with that 1 year mark, of course, I do feel much closer to my wife. It just sucks. LDR sucks, man. I'm sorry to say it. I won't turn this into a ranting session because you guys clicked onto this episode because you wanted to hear some information on senior citizens for your parents. Okay, but anyway, I just wanted to share that information because I was not able to upload an episode, and this is my apology. Hopefully, you guys can accept that because I was busy spending time with my wife. But now that we're back here in Manila, we now have the time and the actual means to produce a good episode for you guys. All right, I mentioned the 5 tips when it comes to senior citizen workouts. The first thing I mentioned was for you to prioritize walking, or like for your parents or your grandparents to prioritize walking. This is not brand new information, but the reason why I do want to emphasize on it again is because that's the most basic human movement, to literally walk from point A to point B. I'm pretty sure you've seen so many senior citizens just to struggle to go, like, example, from their car when they go to the mall, the parking lot, and then they go to the mall. They don't want to go to the other end of the mall because they're too tired, but that's not going to help them at all when it comes to being healthier. We're not asking them to be jacked. We're not asking them to be aspiring powerlifters or bodybuilders or CrossFitters. We just want them to be healthy. So on that note, walking is what they really, really need. And especially because if they're sitting down primarily like throughout the day, and even though if we're not senior citizens, we sit down a lot, but for them especially, they need to move their joints. They're older, their joints tend to stiffen up quite easier, and they really need to just move their butts. Literally, if you walk, you are going to be working out your butts. Now, for people our age or younger, just a bit older, walking is not really going to develop your glutes because of how low stimulus it is. But if you're a senior citizen and you're sitting down, you've been lying down for so long, walking is really going to help you out. One, of course, it's going to build some glute strength. It's going to keep you more mobile, and it's going to increase your lung capacity. The fact that your heart is being forced to pump at low intensities while you're walking, that's good. You're just going to be overall healthier. They're not going to be jacked, but they're going to be healthier. That, and I'm assuming that's what you want for your parents, right? You want them to be healthy. You don't need them to bench 225. You don't need them to deadlift 500 pounds. You just need them to have the confidence to go throughout their day, to do all of their chores, to do all of their errands, and not worry that they'll be gassing out, right? So that's why that's tip number 1, prioritize walking. Oh, I guess if you want some strict or like more concrete suggestions with the walking, every day. I'm really going to emphasize on that. This is not an MWF thing. This is not a TTHS thing. This is an everyday thing. This is a daily routine that they should be doing. Now, if they're starting out, hey, freaking 10 minutes for the whole day, that's a good start already. They can do 10 minutes for the first week. Heck, even two weeks of just 10-minute walking, that's going to be a good start. They don't have to start out intense. I mean, 10 minutes isn't intense at all. It's far from it. But after, example, the first week of 10 minutes, the second week can be 20. The third or fourth week can be 30. Whatever it is, just make them walk for a daily routine. Let them form the habit because that's really going to help them out in the future. Every day. It's again, sure they can aim for the mod or like the what do you call this, the in thing right now of aiming for 10,000 steps a day, but that's gonna be too much for a senior citizen to aim for, even in the first month, even in the first 3 months actually. So you can just make them look at the minutes. Don't prioritize the steps, I guess, just so that it's easier for them because they don't need a smartwatch anyway. Instead, just make them walk for 10 to 30 minutes a day, and that's already a major step towards the right direction of them being healthier. So yeah, that's tip number 1, walking first. Always have to prioritize walking, and they don't need to like learn it so much. They don't need to sign up for a gym unless they want a treadmill. They can just go around the mall or go around their village or wherever they are. But I guess whatever's better for the person. Number 2, frequency above intensity. I mentioned it a while ago. I'll say it again. They do not need to be jacked. They do not need to be powerlifting level or bodybuilder levels. They just need to move. And frequency, that's why it ties into what I said a while ago with the walking. Make it daily. Now, if we're going to talk about actual workouts where they're going to step in the gym or they're going to do some light workouts at home, like some home workouts, frequency above intensity. So they can start out with 3 times a week. Of course, that's not great. That's not super high frequency, right? 3 times a week of a full body workout. And then probably after 2 months of 3 times a week, I want them to progress to 4. And then after 3 more months of that, I want them to progress to 5 until it literally becomes like a 6 or 7 day a week thing. But again, frequency really matters for senior citizens because they need to always move. That's really what's going to make them feel young again. That recommendation that I just gave right now will not apply to, I would say, regular lifters. Example for me, I don't want to work out 7 times a week full body. I don't. I literally do not want to do that. And that's not going to be recommended to a lot of lifters, whether you be a power lifter or a bodybuilder, for you to work out 7 days a week. No, that's not going to be a good recommendation because you do need your body to recover. But this is the exact opposite for a senior citizen workout. The reason why, aside from them needing to move their bodies every day, the reason why I do recommend 7 times a week is because their workouts should be light to moderate intensity. Never, I'm going to really say it, there's literally no need for an AMRAP set for a senior citizen. They literally do not need to go get a new 1 rep max, 3 rep max, 5 rep max. There is no major gain from that. Sure, I mean, yeah, if they really want to, if they want to work out similar to a power lifter, then fine. But if our goal is for them to just be healthier, there's literally no point. The risk far outweighs the reward. The risk of you making a 65, 70-year-old client do a new 5 rep max, but at the risk of them hurting their back. No, that's because if they hurt them back, they're senior citizens. They're going to take so long to recover. And I mean it. They're going to take so long to recover just because they don't have their youthful bodies anymore. So that is precisely why tip number 2 is for them to prioritize frequency over intensity. They don't need to go to failure. They don't even need to be near failure. Probably, if we're going to talk about RPEs or RIRs, an RPE that they should go for is like 5 or 6 max. And then just prioritize the number of sets and then just do that multiple times a day. Multiple times a week. Ideally, within the 5 to 7 times a week. That would be ideal. Okay, before I talk about tip number 3, let's have some coffee. You know what? So I love drinking hot coffee. But I might be converted into iced coffee once again because of how hot it is in the Philippines. It's been 35 Celsius here. That's crazy. And I'm filming this right now. The aircon is off. The electric fan is off. There's no air ventilation right now, air circulation, just because I want the audio quality to be good for everyone. Whew, the things I do. Tip number 3. So I mentioned a while ago that it is also really important for senior citizens to train their reaction time. In other words, their coordination, because we don't want them to slip and fall and break a bone or hurt themselves. Because I'm pretty sure you guys have heard that in the past, wherein unfortunately somebody would slip, whether that be with a puddle of water on the floor and then they slipped off that. Or example, they just really lost their balance for a split second and then they fall. we want them to train their reaction time. And I got this tip from Coach Joe DeFranco. The reason why actually is to share. Then he's actually the inspiration. He's my inspiration for making this podcast, because his podcast has helped me quite a lot as a coach and as a human being. He has some great information there. So if you want to listen to a podcast from a way more seasoned veteran coach, highly recommend the Joe DeFranco's Industrial Strength Show. It's a very long name for a podcast, but it's really, really good. But anyway, this tip, I got it from him, and it does make sense. You do need to train the reaction time. Now, how do you train the reaction time of a senior citizen, or in general, how do you train reaction time? That's going to be like coordination drills. Before, I would do drills, like whether actually, even if they're not senior citizens, if they have poor coordination, this is a good drill. And I know the majority of you out there, if you're like a serious lifter already, you're going to laugh at this. But one thing that I do with some clients, if I know that their coordination is really poor, is I play catch with them. I know that sounds super silly, but it really helps. They did not grow up with sports. So like, unlike you and me, probably, like, who grew up like from 5 years old, we were doing some form of sports, football, basketball, soccer, whatever. So we are trained from a very young age to know how to catch a ball, how to block a ball, pass a ball, or just do anything with our hands, like hand-eye coordination. A lot of people, you'd be surprised, do not have that basic hand-eye coordination. So training catch and throw with a senior citizen is going to be great. That can be done with like a regular basketball or like a football, or sorry, like a soccer ball, not the actual like American football, because that's gonna be hard to throw. And then progressing to a tennis ball, where they try to be coordinated with left hand and right hand, make them shift or shuffle left and right, and then catch and throw. Simple play drills like that are really, really going to help them. And on top of that, you can do some light plyometric drills, not 24, 36, or 50-inch plyo boxes, but more like freaking 3 inches of an elevation. Like maybe actually 3 inches is a kind of high for a senior citizen on the first day, but like you get the point, where you just want them to train to jump a bit, like 1 inch, 2 inches, until they get more used to it. And then of course, single leg jump or the balance, like again, whatever variation it is, as long as the intensity is low. And that's going to be a tremendous help for them to develop their reaction time, so that if ever, like, of course, God forbid, they find themselves in the situation that they might slip and fall, hopefully those drills that you have drilled with them would be able to make them fast enough or coordinated enough to react and stop themselves from falling. That's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is to build strength at the end ranges of motion. This one is, of course, to increase your strength and mobility, because I'm pretty sure, actually, majority of you right now, ask your parents to make them reach their arms as high as they can. They're probably going to be until here, and they don't have the mobility to go reach all the way up until like a overhead press position. That's because if they're not training their joints to move, they're probably going to have limited ranges of motion. So that is, and I got this, I mentioned this before already, from Coach Ben Patrick. Very, very, it's not innovative, but how he explained it and popularized it was somewhat innovative. That you do have to do movements like a knees over toes split squat, to do a dumbbell pull over, to do a dumbbell pec fly, not in the sense of them being muscle builders, but for like muscle lengtheners, to be able to build that strength at the end ranges of motion. Because I'll talk about how it benefited me. I'm not a senior citizen, but my range of motion from my shoulder has significantly improved. And I really do think that to these exercises, to that training mentality, that I am doing this weighted exercise not as a means to build the muscle, but it's a means to develop its range of motion. And because of that, because of my range of motion being a lot better now, I've had chronic shoulder pain for 10 years or like something close to that. So, and ever since I've been doing these exercises, my shoulder pain literally disappeared. I'm not even exaggerating when I say literally disappeared. Like I don't feel it anymore. All because I trained my end ranges of motion. And that's a very, and it doesn't, that's actually, that can be their main workout. They don't need to do movements like the bench press or like the barbell squat. No, they don't need to do that. I mean, if they want to, go ahead, try it out. But if you can make them do movements that trains their end ranges of motion, again, top of my head, pull over, pec fly, knees over toes, like KOT split squat, those will already be a big help to them feel a lot healthier and just more mobile. So yeah, I mean, sure, that doesn't mean that I am gonna like, hey, don't do anything else aside apart from that. No, you can still do other workouts. It's just you have to make sure that they do those workouts as well. And to tie it all together, the fifth one is that I don't recommend senior citizens to do majority of the machines. And a lot of people might think that, oh, since they're senior citizens, just to make it easier for them, they should do primarily machines. And at first thought or like first glance at a program for that, it does make sense because knowing that their coordination isn't great, you might opt for them to do something that's less technically challenging so that their muscles can get stronger. And that's a valid point, but I think it's going to benefit them more if you make them prioritize free weights and calisthenics or like body weight exercises. And because especially with body weight exercises, that's very low stress on the joints because there's no external load. Example, like a barbell squat or a barbell bench press, that's external load, which is not necessarily bad. But for senior citizens, like doing a push-up instead of the bench press, to do a body weight squat instead of forcing a barbell squat or even a leg press, that's going to be great because there's no external load. And on top of the fact that there's no external load, they'll be able to develop the coordination. So it's like two birds in one stone, where it's a healthier alternative, and it also, develops their coordination to move their body towards a certain direction. So example, like a lot of people, senior citizen or not, whenever they have a hard time standing up when they're sitting down for a long time. So make sure that they have the leg strength, the squat strength to squat themselves up. For example, they're getting out of bed. They can, if their incline push-up game is strong, then of course they'll have the strength to push them or get themselves off of bed. Stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that Coach Ali doesn't like all machines for senior citizens. No, there are some machines that I do feel like would benefit a senior citizen, and that would be primarily or almost exclusively cable machines, specifically cable machines that are pulling motions. So, example, it's not a long list. Cable lat pull down, cable row, single arm cable row, single arm lat pull down, or like the face pull, or actually just maybe those five. Basically, any big pulling exercise on a cable stack machine or like on a cable. The reason why it's cable is because if you can imagine how it's I don't know, there's a pull down that's not a cable. It's like it's a lever type system. I mean, that's okay, but the reason why the cables, I believe, are superior is because it allows them to move or like adjust. Because unlike like the fixed lever arms, yes, it's no load on themselves, but they're going through a fixed range of motion, as opposed to a cable wherein they can lean back or lean forward according to their current mobility. So, I mean, that's why I do love cable machines in general, and that's why I love it even more so for senior citizens. So again, I don't recommend most machines. So like the chest press, the leg extension, leg curl. I mean, all of those machines have they have their pros, they have their benefits, but in the strict context of senior citizens, the only times that I'd recommend machines would be cable pulling machines, and I want majority of their workouts to revolve around the body weight exercises or free weights that aren't extremely heavy. So when I say free weights, maybe like there are only a few free weight exercises that I'd recommend. That can be the goblet squat, the walking lunge, the single arm double overhead press, the single arm row. Basically, exercises that aren't going to be too heavy on their bodies, but it's easy enough for them to perform because they're not complicated. It's not like I'm asking them to do a complicated dumbbell exercise would be the dumbbell clean, then dumbbell push press. I mean, those are great if they can learn that. But if they're starting out, just keep things simple. The less complicated it is, the better for them. And if it's less complicated, probably you'll be able to maintain the high frequency that we mentioned a while ago. But yeah, that's about it. Those are the 5 tips when it comes to senior citizen workouts. Let me repeat them all once again. The 5 tips for senior citizen workouts. Number 1, always prioritize walking. That's going to be like the easiest thing that they can do. It's free and it's extremely helpful. The second tip is to prioritize frequency above intensity. And when I say frequency, daily is going to be the ideal time for them, or the ideal frequency for them to work out, whether that be a gym workout, home workout. Frequency above intensity. They don't need to go to failure. They don't even need to go near failure. Tip number 3 is for them to train their reaction time, because we want them to be coordinated enough to, if ever they catch themselves in a situation where they might slip, they have to be coordinated enough to react and stop themselves from slipping. The fourth one is for them to build strength at the end ranges of motion. In other words, to build their strength mobility. And then the last one is to prioritize body weight and free weight training. And I don't really favor a lot of machines for senior citizens. And that's it. Hopefully, this episode number 29, was helpful for you guys. I know you guys aren't the senior citizens, but hopefully you clicked onto this video, and after listening to it all, you now have a better grasp on how you can give advice to your parents or your grandparents. And on that note, I'll see you guys next week on the next episode.